All the students gathered in the dining hall for lunch. Suddenly, a group of rebels entered the dining hall. The rebel leader, Mr. Congo, climbed on top of the table. Congo shouted, "Boys on the left, girls on the right." The boys, including Aine, moved to the left, and the girls moved to the right. Congo walked through the students and ordered, "Kill all the girls." The rebels then killed all the girls. The remaining students screamed and cried in extreme fear. Once there lived a handsome boy named Aine. Aine lived with his father, Mr. Jemba, who loved him very much. Aine's mother had passed away a few days after giving birth to him. Mr. Jemba always told him good things about his late mother. It made Aine feel like he knew her all his life. They missed her very much. There were many pictures of Aine's mother and Mr. Jemba in the house. However, there was only one picture of Aine as a baby in his mother's arms. He figured it was probably because his mother died right after it was taken, so they never got a chance to take more pictures. One day, as Aine was laying his father's bed, he found an old folded picture under the mattress. It was the same picture of baby Aine in his mother's arms, but this picture looked older and wrinkled, like it was the original. To an even greater shock, in the bottom left corner, there was a faded writing that read, "My baby girl Aine." Aine was puzzled. Why was he called a girl in this picture? He quickly ran to the sitting room to compare this picture to the picture he had seen all his life. Oh! He was utterly shocked. It was the exact same picture, but this one was older and had a writing on it. It was probably a mistake, he thought, because why would they write that he was a girl when he is a boy? He kept the photo in his pocket and went back to his father's bedroom to finish laying his bed. When Mr. Jemba came back from work, Aine didn't waste any time. "Baba, I found this photo under the mattress. Why does it say my baby girl Aine, yet I'm a boy?" Mr. Jemba looked shocked. He couldn't breathe. Aine looked at him in shock. "Baba, are you okay?" he asked, concerned. "Didn't I raise you better, Aine? Is that how you welcome your father from work?" Mr. Jemba instantly said angrily to avoid Aine's questions. "I came back from work stressed and you're bombarding me with questions. Maybe I've taken long without disciplining you." Aine immediately apologized to his father, feeling bad-mannered. "I'm sorry, Baba. Welcome back." Good evening." Mr. Jemba sighed, easing the tension. "It's nothing, son. It was just a mistake on the photo, made by a nurse at the hospital. She took the photo 2 days after your mother had given birth to you, and she wrote girl instead of boy. That's why I got it reprinted without the writing." Aine felt satisfied with the response. "I hope you're prepared for school already. The weekend is over. I will take you tomorrow morning. I'm a bit tired today, okay?" "Okay, Baba," Aine replied. Mr. Jemba proceeded to his bedroom. He shut the door behind him, breathing heavily, like he was almost caught red-handed. He quickly checked his drawer to confirm if it wasn't checked. Aine felt a mix of emotions. He was sad that his father shouted at him for a simple issue, but he let it go. It wasn't that deep anyway. Aine was in a boarding school, and he only went home on weekends as per the school rules. On Monday morning, his father, Mr. Jemba, dropped him off at school. "Remember, son," Mr. Jemba said, "stay out of trouble. I need you to concentrate on your studies." Aine nodded and waved goodbye. His best friend Kisa was waiting for him inside the gate. Their fists bumped. Aine and Kisa had been friends since they were little kids. When they were younger, Aine used to hug Kisa every time they saw each other. But as they grew older, Kisa felt weird about the hugs and asked Aine to stop. They still cared about each other a lot and stayed best friends. Girls at school liked Aine a lot, but Aine would often avoid them as per his father's warning. Dating was not allowed in the school, and if found, the students would be caned or even suspended. That of course didn't stop the students from coupling. It was only illegal when they were caught. Aine had one girlfriend named Patricia, the headmaster's daughter. Kesa had set them up. At first, Aine didn't want to be with Patricia, but Kesa insisted. So Aine agreed, and soon they became the cutest couple in school. Patricia was very possessive and so in love with Aine. She would write him long love letters, always wanting to hold his hand. She had even started pressuring him to break her virginity. Aine found it a bit too much. His father had warned him not to mess around, and he wasn't ready to get that serious. He ran to the dormitory and complained to Kisa about Patricia. Kisa, she always sends me these weird notes. Look at this one. Aine showed Kisa a note of Patricia asking him to be her first and break her virginity. Aine was angry and nervous, almost on the verge of tears. Kisa laughed. Well, she really likes you, Aine. What's the problem? Aine sighed. I don't feel the same way. She's too much. I just don't like her like that. You know that. I tried, but I can't. Kisa looked at Aine. Then why are you still with her? Aine hesitated. Deep down, he didn't feel anything for Patricia. He was actually attracted to his best friend, Kisa. He had felt that way since primary school. He didn't know why he felt that way, but he didn't want to ruin their friendship and cause problems. Aine decided to keep his feelings a secret. He and Kisa shared everything, their joys, their sorrows. They were closer than other boys who were friends. Aine didn't want to ruin that just because of his feelings. When Kisa had asked him to stop hugging him, it hurt Aine's feelings, but he understood why. For now, Aine pretended to be happy with Patricia and kept his true feelings hidden. He cherished his friendship with Kisa more than anything and didn't want to lose it. Aine was a strange teenage boy. Every month, he felt stomach pain for 4 straight days. It began a few years ago when he was going through puberty. He always writhed in pain, holding his belly. His father always comforted him and gave him pills to reduce the pain. Over time, Aine got used to it and prepared to feel pain every month. Kesa always wondered what was wrong with Aine and comforted him throughout the pain. When Aine had just joined boarding school in secondary, it was mentally torturous for him. They had one big bathroom in the boys' section. Aine would get aroused and stare at the boys while they showered. The boys laughed at him, bullied him, and called him names. The dormitory captain, Odoi, reported him to their patron, and Aine received several warnings. Kesa understood him and never judged him. Back in the present, Kesa asked, "Why are you still with Patricia if you don't love her?" Aine felt angry. Kesa had forced him into a relationship with Patricia, and now this question, instead of venting out, he unintentionally said, "Because I love someone else." Kesa gasped. "Who is it? Tell me. Do I know her?" He smiled curiously. Aine stammered, realizing what he had just started. What about you? You keep pushing me towards girls, but I've never seen you with a girlfriend. What are you hiding?" Kesa tensed up, his smile vanishing. "That's none of your business. Why do you want to know?" He quickly got angry and defensive. "That's my personal matter." Kesa stormed out of the dormitory on the verge of tears. Aine stood there in disbelief, not knowing what he had said wrong. Tears formed in his eyes. The dormitory captain, Odoi, who was sitting on his bed, heard their conversation and laughed. "You're such weirdos." Feeling sad, Aine rushed out, looking for Kisa to find out what was wrong and apologize to him. Aine found Kisa sitting alone in a classroom. Aine sat down next to him. "Kisa, I'm sorry if I upset you. I didn't mean to pry," Aine said softly. Kisa looked up, his eyes red. It's hard, Aine. I don't want to talk about it. You would hate me forever if you knew." Aine looked at Kisa with tears in his eyes. If I knew what? He asked softly. He reached out to touch Kissa's cheek. Kissa closed his eyes, feeling Aine's touch. I think I'm gay, Kissa said sadly. Why are you doing this? Why are you touching me like this? Please stop it. It won't be good for us. Aine felt a mix of happiness and shock at Kissa's revelation. Kissa, I think I'm gay too, he confessed. I've always felt this way about you. I don't like girls. I like you. Kissa opened his eyes surprised. You like me? Yes, Aine said, his voice trembling. Ever since primary school, I've had these feelings for you. I was scared to tell you because I didn't want to ruin our friendship. Kissa stared at Aine, his own feelings bubbling up. Aine, I feel the same way. I don't like other boys, but I like you. I've always had these feelings for you too. That's why it was hard for me to date someone else. They both felt a wave of relief and joy wash over them. They had been carrying these feelings for long, and now they knew they weren't alone. They hugged each other tightly, feeling a warmth and feeling they had never felt before. It was as if the pain and confusion melted away in a moment. I can't believe this, Aine whispered. I'm so happy we feel the same way. Me too, Kissa said. But we have to be careful. If anyone finds out, Aine nodded. I know. We'll keep it a secret. They broke the hug and leaned in to kiss each other, their hearts pounding with excitement. But before they could, they heard someone shouting, What's going on here? Patricia was standing nearby, her eyes wide with shock. She ran off, shouting for her father, the headmaster. Aine and Kissa's hearts sank. They looked at each other, fear in their eyes. What are we going to do? Aine asked, his voice trembling. I don't know. We are finished, Aine. They're going to expel us. My parents will kill me, Kissa said, trembling in fear. The school assembly was called right after the incident with Aine and Kissa. The headmaster stood before the entire school body, his voice stern and disappointed. He caned them both and announced their suspension for 1 week, emphasizing the need to reflect on their actions. Aine's father, Mr. Jemba, arrived to take him home. His face was a mix of anger and concern as he led Aine away from the school grounds. At home, Mr. Jemba was so angry. I warned you about dating, Aine, he said sharply. Now you're gay? Aine knelt down, tears in his eyes. Baba, I love Kissa, he confessed. I can't help it. I don't understand why I feel this way. Mr. Jemba's expression softened momentarily. He sighed heavily and pulled Aine into a tight hug, saying Aine was doing exactly what his true nature is supposed to do. Confused, Aine looked at his father. What do you mean, Baba? But Mr. Jemba avoided his question, urging Aine to go to his room and rest. Aine did as he was told. He entered his room, but as he walked past his mirror, he noticed something peculiar. He stopped his tracks. Wait a minute, Aine whispered to himself. He took a step back to the mirror, his heart pounding. To his shock, his reflection showed a girl wearing the exact same clothes as his, with longer hair and a ladylike body and features. But she looked exactly like him. It was like him in a female body. She was making the exact same actions as him. Aine screamed in disbelief and stumbled back, calling out his father. Mr. Jemba rushed into the room alarmed. Aine, what's wrong? He asked urgently. Aine pointed to the mirror, but when they both looked, there was no girl in the reflection. It was just Aine, standing there with his father. Aine tried to explain what he had seen, but Mr. Jemba dismissed it as a hallucination brought on by stress. He continued warning him to stay away from Kissa because he would cause him problems. Reluctantly, Mr. Jemba put Aine to bed and stayed with him until he fell asleep, comforting his scared son. Afterwards, Mr. Jemba went to his own room, his mind racing with worry. He made a phone call, speaking quietly but urgently. We have a problem. We need to meet up. Days passed, and Aine couldn't stop thinking about Kisa. Kisa wasn't answering his phone, so Aine decided to visit Kisa's house, hoping to talk and sort things out. However, when he arrived, Kisa's parents met him at the door with disappointing looks. "You're spreading your bad manners to our son. How dare you try to kiss our son?" Kisa's father said sternly. "We don't tolerate that kind of behavior in our house." Heartbroken, Aine walked back home, tears streaming down his face. Kisa had told his parents that Aine tried to kiss him. He had some hope that maybe Aine said that to save himself. Aine and Kisa finally returned to school after their suspension. As soon as they walked in, the other students laughed at them. Patricia and her friends jeered at them, blaming them for breaking Patricia's heart. Odoi and his group bullied them, calling them names. In the dormitory, Aine tried to talk to Kisa, but Kisa made it clear that he didn't want to be friends with him anymore. Aine cried, not believing that Kisa didn't want him anymore. "I know you're lying, Kisa. I'll be waiting for you no matter what. You're probably scared. I understand." "Me too." Kisa shouted at him. "Leave me alone," while tears ran down his face. They parted ways, both feeling heartbroken. Later, all the students gathered in the dining hall and ate lunch. Odoi and Patricia stood on a table, making fun of Aine and Kisa. Kisa was angry, and Aine was crying profusely. Suddenly, they heard gunshots outside. Teachers outside screamed as they were killed, plus all staff members. Students started screaming in the dining hall. Some hid under the tables, some ran to the windows, and others ran out the door. Aine and Kisa looked at each other, very scared, but they were too far apart. They both hid under the nearest tables. Students who ran outside were shot instantly, as were those who tried to escape through the windows. Suddenly, a group of rebels entered the dining hall, holding the headmaster at gunpoint. Students were terrified and crying. The rebel leader, Mr. Congo, climbed on top of the table and angrily ordered the students to come out. When they refused, he shot into the ceiling, and all the students came out screaming and pleading. Aine was scared and trembling. He and Kisa looked at each other, wanting to be close but unable to move. Congo shouted, "Boys on the left, girls on the right." The boys, including Aine, moved to the left, and the girls moved to the right. One boy, too scared to move, had peed in his pants and was begging the rebel leader to let him go home. One of the rebels shot him dead. The students screamed in shock and horror, realizing the gravity of the situation. The headmaster pleaded with the rebels, but they silenced him. Congo walked through the students and ordered, "Kill all the girls." The students cried and pleaded for mercy. Patricia, who was at the end of the line, quickly ran out of the dining hall. Shots were fired at her, but she managed to disappear. Such a clever girl. Her father, the headmaster, felt relieved, hoping she would hide safely. The rebels then killed all the girls. The remaining students screamed and cried in extreme fear. The rebels then proceeded to look for Patricia. Congo then instructed all the remaining boys to walk to the bus. They were blindfolded before entering the bus. Aine and the other boys got on the bus, trembling and obeying, not knowing where they were going. The other rebels returned, saying they hadn't found Patricia. They took the headmaster with them, and the bus drove off before the police could arrive. The bus drove for hours and hours before going away. Finally, the bus stopped deep in a forest. There was a large building that looked like an old abandoned prison. The kids were told to get out, and their blindfolds were taken off. They were still trembling in fear as they entered the building, not knowing why they had been brought there. Back at school, the news had spread all over the country. Police and journalists flooded the school. Patricia, who had hidden in a tree, came out when she realized the men had left. Parents arrived, crying for their children, especially those who had daughters. Their little daughters were killed for no reason. Parents of the missing boys also cried. Aine's father, Mr. Jemba, arrived at school, crying for his son. He was accompanied by Kisa's parents. Patricia, still in shock, narrated the whole story of what had happened. Mr. Jemba, in extreme shock, muttered to himself, "Oh my goodness, so the prophecy is really happening? Oh my poor baby." Patricia turned to him asking, "What prophecy?" He replied sharply, "What prophecy? I didn't say anything. You're probably traumatized and hearing voices. Someone help this kid." The other parents agreed and hugged Patricia to comfort her. Parents of the deceased students went to bury their kids, but those with missing kids, including Mr. Jemba, slept at the school, hoping for their kids to return. Aine and the boys entered the large old building. To their surprise, it was like a hidden town. They walked through a busy trading center, noticing that everyone was a man. Posters were everywhere, saying that girls were not allowed. A creepy old man sitting on the street kept shouting repeatedly, "All girls must be killed." The boys felt scared and confused. Congo instructed one rebel to take the boys to their rooms, while he and the other rebels went with the headmaster. The boys reached a room that looked like a dormitory. The rebel who guided them introduced himself. "This is your new home. I'll be your trainer." Tinku was tall and muscular with a stern face. He had a big scar across his cheek. "Those who want to go home should raise their hands before it's too late," Tinku said, tempting them. One boy next to Aine tried to raise his hand, but Aine grabbed it before Tinku could see. "No hands? Good boys. Honestly, I would have hated to kill anyone who raised their hand. You better get comfortable here, because the only way you're living is if you're dead," Tinku said firmly. He instructed the boys to choose their beds. They ran to quickly pick their beds, but Aine stood there angrily. Tinku noticed him. "Hey you, big-headed boy," Tinku said. Aine looked at him. "You better blend in like your fellows, or else you'll face the consequences." Aine quickly rushed to find a bed. There was only one left, with Odoi on the upper bed. Tinku left, urging them to sleep as training would start the next day. The boys started crying after he left, wanting to go home. One even said he wanted to end himself. Others cried for their girlfriends who were killed at school. Aine immediately searched for Kisa, who was already staring at him with tears. They ran to each other and hugged, crying profusely. Odoi and the other boys laughed at them, alerting the guards. The guards entered and warned them about the noise. The boys ran back to their beds, forcing sleep. The next morning, they were woken up with cold water. Their school uniforms were burnt, and they were given casual training attire. They were lined up on the training grounds. Tinku, Congo, and all the other rebels were present. The headmaster was tied up, kneeling down after having received several beatings. Tinku asked if anyone had any questions before they began. All were quiet. Aine raised his hand and asked why they killed all the girls and why the girls weren't allowed in the place. The rebels laughed. Tinku smiled and answered, "That is a prophecy from long ago, that a girl with a sword tattoo will be the downfall of this great place. But it will never happen. That's why we will kill all the girls we find." Congo and the other rebels laughed. Aine and the boys thought maybe Patricia was the girl they were talking about, and she would come and rescue them. Training began. It was very tough. They started with running, climbing, and carrying heavy loads. Other boys trained effortlessly, but Aine felt sick with stomach cramps. He refused to go and cried, squeezing his stomach. Congo ordered Tinku to beat him up to death. Tinku did, and the boys felt sad. Kesa pleaded to spare Aine, saying he wasn't feeling well because it's a new place, but he would get used in the following days. They allowed Kisa to take Aine back to the dormitory. In the dormitory, Kisa caressed Aine's cheek before he could go back. "I'm sorry, Aine. I didn't mean those words at school. I was scared," Kisa said. "I know, Kisa. I'm sorry too. Saying that I was about to die without talking to you one last time almost killed me. You defended me back there, risking your life. Please don't leave me again," Aine replied. They hugged each other tightly, crazy feelings lingering through their bodies. As they leaned in, their lips met gently, creating a shiver of excitement. The kiss deepened, and the world seemed to disappear, leaving only the two of them. They caressed each other. The kiss was tender, yet urgent, a release of their long-held feelings. When they finally parted, their foreheads touched as they stared at each other. Suddenly a light glowed over Aine. His body started to change. He felt a warm tingling sensation. His chest began to change. He grew boobs. His hair lengthened into an afro. His face softened with delicate features, and his body became slender and graceful. He gained bright, expressive eyes, a smooth skin, and a sword tattoo formed on his hand. Aine had transformed into a girl. Kisa stared at Aine, who had turned into a girl. He stumbled back, screaming. He then covered his own mouth to keep quiet and not alert the rebels. Aine hadn't noticed the change yet. When he saw his new body, he shouted in surprise. Instead of his old manly voice, a soft, sharp voice came out. He stopped shouting to avoid trouble. Kisa asked what was happening. Aine said he didn't know. He went to the window and saw his reflection. He had become the girl from the mirror at home. No. This is impossible, he said. He remembered all the incidents at home regarding the picture which insinuated that he was a baby girl and the mirror incident. He explained everything to Kisa and how suspicious his father's behavior was. You're the girl from the prophecy, Kisa said, shocked and pointing at his sword tattoo. But why was Aine a boy all his life? A long time ago, these rebels were very powerful, and they still are. They controlled the government. They helped overthrow governments and had the power to appoint their wished presidents. They killed and massacred people as they wished. It was a period of absolute fear and terror. They are still untouchable as they control even the current government. One day, a foreseer told Congo, the leader, that a special girl with a sword tattoo would bring about the downfall of the rebel group. Congo trusted his foreseer because most of her prophecies came to pass. The rebels went everywhere, killing any girl they would find, whatever age she was. When Aine was born, her mother knew she was the girl from the prophecy because of her sword tattoo. She and Mr. Jemba were afraid for Aine's life. They went to a witch doctor who changed Aine into a boy to keep her safe. But he warned them that if Aine fell in love with a boy and kissed him, the magic would fail and she would turn back into a girl. Aine's mother died some time later, and Mr. Jemba raised Aine as a boy, which explains Aine and Kisa's strange attraction towards each other. Back in the present, Kisa and Aine realized why they were in love with each other, why Aine's father always told him to stay away from dating. Aine undressed to look at the changes on his body. His baby had changed to a VV and he had boobs. Kisa immediately looked away, feeling embarrassed. Aine realized the situation and covered up, feeling even more embarrassed. Suddenly, there was a loud bang on the door. It was Tinku. Aine and Kisa panicked. Aine quickly put her clothes back on. Kisa told her to get under the blanket in bed and cover up from head to toe. Tinku kicked open the door and entered. Kisa couldn't hide the fear on his face. Tinku studied his face and knew something was wrong. It couldn't have been fear for Tinku. It looked like something else, like Kisa had been caught red-handed. He looked at Aine, who was pretending to shiver in the bed, pulled off his blanket and saw everything. The hair, the sword tattoo, the body. Aine looked back in shock. As Tinku's eyes widened in shock, the room fell into a chilling silence. Aine's heart raced. She knew her secret was out, but what would Tinku do? With danger closing in, will Aine and Kisa find a way to escape their nightmare? Don't miss part 2 to discover their fate and the shocking twists ahead. If you love this story, please leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so that you're notified every time I post new videos. Stay tuned for part 2, guys. Thank you for watching.